long before engines roared through city streets, before traffic lights ruled intersections, before concrete crowded the horizon, there was a sound that defined movement itself. A steady rhythm of iron horseshoes against stone, the creak of wood and leather, the gentle snort of a horse cutting through humid tropical air. This was the sound of the Kalesa, the horse-drawn carriage that once ruled the roads of the Philippines. It was not merely a vehicle, it was power on wheels. It was privilege in motion, it was empire, rolling slowly through colonized streets. And its story begins not in the Philippines, but across the oceans, in the shadow of Spanish kings and global conquest. During the height of Spain's imperial era, the world was shrinking. The galleons of Spain crossed the Atlantic and the Pacific, stitching continents together with trade, religion, and conquest. When Spain reached the islands that would later be called the Philippines, they did not come empty-handed. They brought with them muskets, crosses, laws, bureaucracy, and movement. Before Spanish arrival, Filipinos already had methods of travel. Boats ruled the rivers and seas. Footpaths threaded the forests. Simple wooden sleds carried platforms, and animal-assisted transport existed in different forms. But what the Spanish introduced was something entirely new-wheeled prestige. The Kalesa derived from the Spanish Kalesa and originally from European horse. Carriages was brought as a symbol of civilization as the colonizers defined it. In Europe, carriages were used by royalty, the wealthy, and the powerful. To ride in one was to announce social status before a single word was spoken. And when the Kalesa arrived in Manila in the late 16th and early 17th centuries, it did exactly that. At first, the Kalesa was exclusive. Only high-ranking Spanish officials, friars, military commanders, and elite families were allowed to use it. Indigenous Filipinos, even the wealthy ones, were initially prohibited from owning or riding them freely. The roads themselves were reshaped to accommodate these rolling symbols of power. Stone streets replaced dirt paths. Bridges were constructed wider. City design bent itself around the turning radius of empire. Every clatter of wheels echoed authority. Each passing carriage drew a sharp line between the rulers and the ruled. To ride a Kalesa was to rise above the dust. But history does not remain frozen. As decades turned into centuries, the world of the colony began to change. Trade expanded. Filipino merchants accumulated wealth. Education spread among the ilustrados. And slowly, one by one, Filipinos began stepping into the carriage not as servants clinging to the back, but as passengers within. The Kalesa became more than a Spanish symbol. It became a shared artifact of a changing society. By the 18th and 19th centuries, Manila, Iloilo, Cebu, Vigan, and other major towns were alive with carriages. Streets bustled not only with people, but with movement, elegant, slow, and commanding. The sound of hooves and wheels became the heartbeat of urban life. The Kalesa came in different forms. The most famous was the Kalesa de Caballo, pulled by a single horse and designed for personal transport. It carried officials to meetings, lovers to hidden rendezvous, businessmen to negotiations, and families to Sunday Mass. There was the Caramata larger, heavier, built for cargo and long trips. There were funeral carriages decorated in black velvet and solemn brass. There were celebration carriages dressed in flowers, silk curtains, and gold-painted wood. Each one told a story long before the passenger ever spoke. And then there was the kutsuro, the driver, visible in the history books, yet indispensable in reality. Sarah was the bridge between horse and master. He commanded the animal with the snap of reins and whispered codes learned through years on the road. He knew every alley, every shortcut, every risky corner. He felt the mood of the streets before soldiers ever sensed trouble. In times of revolution, the kutsaro became more than a driver. He became a messenger, a spy, an informant, a smuggler of secrets. Because the revolution, too, rode in a Kalesa. When the Philippine Revolution exploded in 1896, the Kalesa did not disappear. Instead, it transformed. Revolutionary leaders, disguised as civilians, used carriages to pass through Spanish checkpoints. Weapons were hidden beneath seats. Documents were folded into lining. The same wheels that once served empire now carried rebellion. And when Spanish rule ended and the Americans arrived, the Kalesa survived again. This time, it faced its greatest challenge, the automobile. At first, cars were rare and unreliable. Roads were still built for horses. Fuel was scarce. Parts were imported. Meanwhile, the Kalesa already had infrastructure, knowledge, and everyday usefulness. For decades, the horse and engine coexisted. But time has a way of choosing winners. As the 20th century surged forward, cars became cheaper. Roads expanded faster. Cities grew louder, faster, more crowded. The rhythm of life accelerated. The slow dignity of the Kalesa began to feel out of step with the rush of the modern world. One by one, they vanished from major highways. One by one, their sounds faded from everyday life, till only a few roads still remembered their echo. And today, when people think of the Kalesa, one city rises immediately in the imagination: Vigan. In Vigan, the Kalesa is no longer a vehicle of necessity. It is now a vehicle of memory. On Kale Crisolago, stone streets still echo with the same sound that once filled colonial Manila. The horses walk where governors once rode. The wheels trace the same grooves carved by centuries of weight and power. Tourists sit where friars once prayed. Lovers pose where revolutionaries once whispered plans. The Kalesa in Vigan is history on repeat, but not frozen, alive, breathing, working, sweating under the Ilocos sun. The survival of the Kalesa is not without struggle. Behind every picturesque photograph is a complex reality. The horse must be fed even when tourists are few. Pharaoh must earn enough for family, repairs, and veterinary care. The city must balance cultural preservation with modern ethics on animal welfare. The Kalesa now walks a fragile line between heritage and controversy. Is it preservation or exploitation? Is it tradition or outdated hardship? These questions follow every hoofstep. Yet still, day after day, the Kalesa moves forward. not because it is forced by empire, not because it is demanded by colonizers, but because people still choose to remember. Because identity is not built only with concrete and steel. It is built with sound, with motion, with living artifacts that refuse to vanish quietly. The Kalesa is no longer the vehicle of power. It is now the vehicle of memory. It no longer separates social classes. It connects generations. Once, only the elite could ride. Now, anyone can. Once, it symbolized control. Now, it symbolizes survival. Once, it imposed foreign identity. Now, it carries Filipino heritage. The horse that once served empires now serves history. And in every slow, steady step, it reminds us that even in a world obsessed with speed, there is value in moving at the pace of memory. Because progress does not always mean forgetting. Sometimes, progress means learning how to carry the past without being crushed by it. The Kalesa remains not as a ruler of roads, but as a witness to everything the road has seen.